Hello and welcome to the Football English podcast, your one-stop shop for Venezuelan football in English, bringing you fortnightly episodes dedicated to the Venezuelan league, the national teams and the myriad of Venezuelan players around the world.
Today we are joined by the agent of Samson Akinyoola, Cem Sagar. Akinyoola is the best striker in Liga Football, fast, powerful, skillful and clinical in front of goal. He has the highest Instat Index rating of any foreign player in the league and was picked out as the joint highest performer in their mid-season review. The Benin-born striker raised in Nigeria is short but explosive and very, very strong. Already nicknamed the Bison in Venezuela due to his square, broad physique, he plays as the number 9 in a three-man front line, flanked by one inside forward, Richard Sellis, one wideman, Ade Oguns. His link-up play has been superb and so has his off-the-ball movement. Already this season, at the time of recording, he has 12 goals and 5 assists in 22 league games, equating to 0.77 goal involvements per game or 1 per 115 minutes. Cem, firstly, welcome to the podcast. And secondly, you must be so happy to see a player that you picked up at the age of 17 doing so well in Venezuela.
Thank you so much for having me, Jordan. Yes, it makes me really proud to see him really succeed the way he's been succeeding, because he had an opportunity in Europe to do this, but we had a couple of problems with the clubs over here, and because of Caracas' trust, starting from the beginning of the season, he's really shown people what he can do and what he's capable of doing. And I really believe this boy Samson can really go to the next stage as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that I'm sat here as an English guy in Caracas interviewing a London-born guy with Turkish heritage who has a player born in Benin and raised in Nigeria, that you found yourself in Nigeria 4 years ago, like I said. A global game, but something that is fairly curious to the average Venezuelan football fan, having a Benin-born Nigerian striker in their team. How did that opportunity come up to take Samson to Caracas?
Well, the opportunity was there because the president, Mr. Philip, he knew about Samson because they were the previous owners of Serbia in Slovakia. So they actually knew about Samson and they actually wanted to bring him 1 year before at the actual move. But Samson wanted to stay in Europe and just take his chance in Europe to see if he can get the opportunity. And after discussions with the president and Samson and how much the Caracas really wanted Samson realized himself that this could be the best move for him because he was really wanted by the club. And, you know, a club like Caracas, one of the biggest in Venezuela, we have to respect their size of the club in the country as well. So we really thought if Samson can go to a team that's actually attacking a lot, because his previous teams were teams that were fighting for relegation. So it was more of a different style of football he was playing. And with Caracas, he's playing more attacking football because he's playing for one of the best teams in the league. So this really shows what he can do. And, you know, when the opportunity came, when Philip showed us how interested he was in Samson, we just said that this would be the best move. And luckily for us, so far, it looks like we made the right choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally think from day one, he looked very, very exciting. And to me, it was obvious he was going to have a great season. Some people found the move strange because at the end of the day, there's very few foreigners in Venezuelan football. Firstly, because there's a limit on how many each club can have, which is 4. But secondly, Venezuela, often their foreigners are South American. It has a history of African players, but other than Ajin Livingston, a Ghanaian at Atletico Venezuela, and obviously Bonsu, when Samson arrived with Ade Oguns, there haven't really been many African players in Venezuelan football for 15, maybe 20 years. There were a handful in the 90s. So it was curious. And some people were skeptical at first and said that he took a few games to get going. I personally don't think it's the case. But in those first weeks, when you were in contact with Samson, how did he settle when he first arrived?
Well, the thing about Samson, luckily for him, as you mentioned, Ade Oguns is at the club as well. And he's another player that I represent. So them two being together actually helped them a little bit more for him to settle down. And even Bonsu, because Bonsu was in Europe with Senegal, he was in the same club with Samson. So they knew each other as well. So all three of them being together actually helped the case a little bit more of them settling down together. And, Samson has got a very good character, and, he can settle into any environment very quickly. He knows he just has to play football. And, as you said, there hasn't been many African players in Venezuela in the recent years. So hopefully with Samson, with Bonsu and Ade, when he comes back from his injury, other clubs can actually see this as an opportunity to maybe get into the market as well, to bring more African players, because there's actually a lot of good players around the world, and Africa is one of them. And so I think this could open the door for other clubs to really take African market a bit more serious.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to come back to Samson, because he's our main talking point for today's podcast. But I'd like to briefly talk about Ade Oguns, because at the beginning of the season, in the Copa Libertadores qualifiers, when Venezuela played Peruvian opposition UCV and they played Colombian opposition Junior, Ade Oguns was actually the player that impressed me the most out of the two. I thought he looked very, very exciting on the wings, and I thought that he was going to find Venezuela very easy. It was then surprising that he didn't have as much success as Samson has had. But then I found out, a long time after the fact, that he's actually been suffering with an injury throughout the season. I know you're very excited about Ade Oguns' season next season, but in Venezuela, we've not had much chance to see what he's got to offer. What can you tell us about him as a player and your hopes for his 2022?
Well, this was his first time coming out of Africa, and being a young boy, he was very excited with the move. And he picked up an injury, and he didn't tell nobody about it. He didn't tell me, he didn't tell the club, and he just continued to play. And this really affected his knee. And now he's had the operation, and now he's going to come back for next season. And all I can tell the people in Venezuela, just watch out for this boy. He's a really, really talented boy. He's a really strong player. He's a very confident boy who's got really powerful shots in him. So he likes cutting in and taking shots. I've had him for 2 years as well. I found him when he was 17 as well. And because of the COVID, he was actually going to move to a club in Europe, but it didn't happen. So it was the right time to move him with Samson to Caracas. And as I said, the Caracas fans they're going to be very excited with this player next season.
Excellent. It's really, really encouraging to have, because I think, Caracas being one of the top teams in Venezuela, but ultimately being in Venezuela, it's often that a season or two of great performances means the player normally earns a move elsewhere. So, with Oguns, there's a chance that he'll be first choice by proxy next season if some of the wingers from this season who have had great seasons earn moves away. But to go back to Samson, something I've been really impressed with from him is his unselfishness, because ultimately he's a sole striker. The players that are playing off of him are inside forward and a winger, although Richard Sellis, the inside forward, has almost the same number of goals and assists as Samson. But that is my point, assists. Samson is an unselfish striker and has 5 assists, and would have had many more if chances were finished. He really does create as well. When you are identifying talent in Africa, what are the things you look for? And is this something Samson's always had to his game, or something that he's developed at Caracas or maybe Seneca?
Well, that's actually a really good question, because when we look at players in Africa, we obviously look at different aspects of the game depending on what position they play. And mainly when we look at strikers like Samson, we are always looking at unselfish players as well, because getting an assist is just like a goal. So it shows that you are aware of the players around you. So when we had Samson, when I first saw him when he was 17, I think the first game he played, he didn't score, but he got 3 assists in that game. And that was something that really attracted me to Samson when he was 17, when I saw him in Nigeria. And players like Samson are really rare to find in Africa, because a lot of strikers, even if you look at let's just stay in Nigeria, but if you look at the Nigerian strikers in Europe, not many of them get many assists. They like to get their goals, and they like to be selfish in front of goal, which is good if they're doing it and they're winning games for their teams. That's I respect that. But if you got a striker like Samson that can actually help his teammates around, then it gives the mentality of the teammates around him to support Samson as well, because they know that they've got the support of Samson as well. So it's just like a team play, and it's like a mental thing inside the pitch. Just like the reaction that we saw in the last game when Ricochet Celis got injured and Samson scored and he ran up to him, and the way they hugged each other, it shows that they respect each other a lot. And then I saw a post on Instagram, social media of, Celis posting, he's my brother, and so on. So it really makes me proud to see stuff like this. And, it's a really good aspect for a striker to have the instinct of getting assist as well.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about like identifying him at 17, him getting 3 assists, without giving away like your trade secrets, there's obviously a lot more to being an agent than just representing a player. You've spoken about how you've identified these players at a young age in Africa. I've seen through your social media and through talking to you that you don't sit at home in London picking up these players from Africa indirectly. You go yourself and you're on the ground a lot. What's involved in that process, and how do you go about identifying those players?
I think with time, with the experience that you gain in this market, it becomes easier for you to identify players. When I first traveled to Nigeria, I found 3 players in this market. I don't want to give name of the players, but one of them is playing for Watford right now. One of them is playing for Başakşehir in Turkey, Super League last year's champions. And one of them is playing in Saudi Arabia, making a lot of money right now. So these are the first 3 players that I identified when I first traveled there. And I'm the agent that took them out of Nigeria to make their first deals. So within time, you get more experience finding young players. And then one thing I've noticed is obviously going there, speaking to the players, knowing their personalities, seeing their families, gives you a better idea of what kind of personality the boys have got. Because obviously, some players in Africa, in Nigeria, for example, they don't have a lot of resources. They don't have a lot of money. So we want to make sure that when they move to Europe or move to South America, once they start earning a bit of money, we don't want them to lose their passion to really take their career to the next stage. We don't want them to be comfortable. And this is something very important with young players. So it's always important to travel there and meet them, see what sort of personalities they have, see if money is going to really change their mind, are they going to get comfortable. So as you said, I traveled there quite a lot, probably 3 to 4 times a year, and as long as I'm an agent, I'll be doing it, because I've really got really interesting players coming up from this market.
And what drove you to become a football agent, and in particular like focus on the markets that you've had? Because it's been very, very successful, and I can't remember if you said since we've been recording or pre-recording, you've been doing it for 5.5 years now, and to have players caliber that you discovered yourself and moving to clubs of the status that you've achieved is really admirable.
Well, I think, as you said, we've been doing it for 5.5 years now. And what drove me to become an agent, before I was an agent, I was actually a coach. I'm a UEFA B licensed coach. And I've done the coaching for 4 years, and I won 16 trophies in London. So I was quite a successful coach as well. But then it came to a stage where I wanted to take my career to the next level. And I thought, if I can become an agent, and no disrespect to any other agents around the world, but I'm not like most agents, not most agents have UEFA B licenses as well. So I'm from a coaching background, so I can actually tell my players more about in-game situations. So I think this is something that I'm really proud of, and this is something that has really been helping me select players as well. And as you said, 5.5 years in this market. For example, last under-20 national team, I had 7 players in the national team that I represent. So it shows that I'm doing something good with this market, and I'm quite happy with the achievements that we are getting.
Was that the Nigeria under-20 team?
Yes, under-20. We had 7 players in there in the last national team.
Wow, that's great. And for context for listeners, it is an achievement to have a UEFA B license and be a successful coach in London. London probably has more clubs in it than the whole of Venezuela put together. There's so many leagues, so many clubs, and it's also not cheap. It's also not cheap to get your UEFA B license. So it really is an investment of money as well as time and passion. Congratulations for that as well, because that is very good. To go back to Samson, what are his international ambitions and yours for him in terms of national team? Do you see him having a future with either Nigeria or Benin on an international level?
Well, funny we said that, because Benin national team coach is really interested in Samson, but right now we don't think it's the right move for him, because Caracas really needs him in this playoffs.
Yeah,
and even Samson agrees that he needs to stand and help the club. Because of this COVID situation, it's not really easy traveling around the world right now, and we will prefer if he can get this championship for Caracas, get this medal in his CV, and then the national team is always going to be there. Still a young boy, and the coach of Benin national team wants him. He's actually watching him very closely. So hopefully in the next year or 6 months, we should have Samson in the national team as well.
That would be great, and I know that will give Venezuelan football fans and Caracas football fans as much pride as people back in Samson's home country, because it really is something Venezuelan football fans take great pride in. Not just Venezuelans representing the national team, but players in the league itself getting called up to national teams is really a point of pride. So Samson, as we know, in Caracas, having a very successful season, and in his post-match interview last week was very clear in Caracas' aims to win the league, and Samson wants to be a key part of that. Do you know what his career ambition is in the long term, where he wants to be at the top, what he sees as his very top level?
Well, he's a young boy, he's still 21 years old, and every time we speak about something like this, he wants to, no disrespect to South America or North America, he wants to come and play in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And he really believes that he can have a good chance to do this. And, I really believe he can have a chance as well. I mean, I think he's maybe 2 or 3 moves away from achieving this. So this is his dream. He wants to come and play in the top 5 leagues in Europe.
And when you identify a player still in Nigeria, and you're looking at where you think their top level is, how do you form a strategy to get them there? From an agent background, for example, you're talking about Samson being 2 or 3 moves away from maybe a top 5 league in Europe. How do you go about plotting that path? Because obviously a lot of fans, and I think particularly the younger generation of fans that have grown up playing FIFA and Football Manager, they scout, and I think even the non-video game generation, they have this idea that you could just scout a top player in Africa and take him straight to Real Madrid or something. But 9 times out of 10, that's not how it works, and it needs a lot of thought and a carved out path. How do you go about making that strategy for a player?
I mean, this is a really good question, because when we first started working as an agent, obviously you gain experience the more you do your work. And we was just doing moves for the sake of it. For example, if a team was interested in a player, we was doing it because we was thinking it was good for him. But certain times it was not good for him because his style of play didn't suit the club's formation, for example.
Yeah.
So now we look more deeply into how the team plays, the strategy of the team, how the player that we're giving to him. Because obviously when you are getting a young player, and anybody that's getting a young African player, for example, or a young Nigerian player, you are getting him because it's an investment, because you want to play him and sell him. And if he's not playing, if he's not getting game time, it's a waste of time. So right now, when we do deals, especially young players from Africa, we make sure if they are not ready for the team that they sign, we make sure that we can get a loan for this club, for this player, so we can go and gain some experience and get ready for the first team. And after that, depending on how quick he develops in this team, then we'll look at his next move. And, I always use this term in football. It takes 1 season to change your life. Right now, there's so much talk about Samson, and this is the first time he's receiving this. It's because he's scoring goals and he's performing. If he was not doing this, he would just be another player in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. So it all depends on the season that you happen. I did mention Samson is 1 or 2 or 3 moves away from a big 4-5 league in Europe, but this can be one move as well, because he can maybe go next season and score 30 goals or 40 goals, and then more clubs are going to be interested in players like this. So, you know, we take our time on our moves right now. We make sure the players that we are moving is suitable for the teams that he's coming to.
And how do you get the confidence that when you're going to move a player to a club, he'll get those opportunities or he'll get those minutes that he needs? Is it just a case of trust on good relationships you've built, or are there other ways to like ensure that this happens for the player? Because it's a big leap of faith, and we do see it. Your example was perfect. We do see it all the time. Players making the wrong moves because of a clash in tactics, or how the play style of the player doesn't match the play style of the club.
Yeah, I mean, we can never guarantee this, because there's no such thing as guaranteeing football. You know, we just have to believe in our players that we are working with, that they will go to their new clubs and perform, and that once they're given the chance, that they'll take it. And obviously, as I said, when you move younger players to a big club, for example, and they are not ready for the first team, it's always good to loan them out to a different club where he can get game time. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that he has to play in the club that he's signed with, but he can go to a different club. Maybe it's one division below, just to get that game time and be ready for his team the following year. So as I said, there's no guarantee in football. You know, look what happened to Ade Oguns. You know, he got injured and nobody was expecting this. I was expecting that he'll be getting more game time, but because of injuries, we have to make B plans. So, you know, football is never a guaranteed game.
Okay. And when you're getting these players like Samson in Nigeria, you know, you told me a week or two ago, you know, can't judge a player by a highlights reel, which is of course correct. With players in Africa, I guess there may be a similar problem to one of the problems of Venezuela, which is if you're not playing in the first team or the first division, it's quite hard to get good footage to get that initial interest. If you're for example, the second division games don't tend to be televised, don't end up on YouTube, so don't end up on the scouting platforms like Y-Scout or Instat. How do you navigate that problem with Africa, or is it not a problem?
It's a little bit different in Nigeria. For example, all the players that I've moved, none of them plays for the first division or the second division. It's all academy boys. The Nigerian system is a little bit more different, where the academies have got the young boys and they don't want to give them to the league clubs until if they don't go to Europe or if they don't go to South America. So it's mainly academies that we work with, because it's the academies that have got really, really good talents. And, you know, the teams are investing more and more into their video footage right now. And when I travel to Nigeria, I travel for programs that we arrange. And these games are recorded as well. Okay, they don't get uploaded onto Y-Scout or Interstat or anything like this. But when a club, we are presenting a player to a club, we do present a video of the player as well. These are the videos that we recorded ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think one question that I think a lot of Venezuelan football fans and Caracas FC fans in particular will be interested to know the answer to: do you see more African players coming to Liga Football in the future? Is there going to be the next Samson Akinyoola soon?
As you know, Jordan, I just traveled to Nigeria for a program last week, and I've been speaking with Caracas, and you know, we've actually found a replacement for Samson once he gets his move. So hopefully, if everything goes to plan, there will be another Nigerian striker coming to Caracas in the near future.
Very, very exciting. And just to end, I know we spoke about it briefly earlier, but how do you see Samson's season finishing and Caracas's title chances? And then with an eye to next season, just to get the fans excited again, what can we expect from Ade Oguns?
Well, as I said, once Ade is back fully fit and he's playing, he's going to be a very exciting player. His style of play is a little bit more different than Samson. I mean, Ade can play as a striker as well, just because his athletic features and his finishing. But, you know, he's better on the wing, something like what Celis is doing, cutting in and, you know, getting opportunities to score. So I don't want to say much about Ade, but I just want the Caracas fans and the people in Venezuela just to be ready for this boy, because he's a very exciting player. And, you know, he can have a similar season to Samson if everything goes to plan and is injury-free.
And what are your thoughts and feelings for the end of the season? How do you see Samson and Caracas FC finishing 2021?
I spoke to Samson a couple of days ago, and once they got the promotion to the group stages of the finals, and he was very confident that Caracas was going to win, and they're really excited that they're going to play the best teams in the league. And I really, really believe that they're going to win the league, and I really believe that Samson will get top scorer in the league. And when they're playing against tougher opponents, I think a team like Caracas, they perform better. So it's really going to be exciting to see the final stages of the league, just to see who's going to win it. And my prayers are with Caracas, and hopefully I'll be in Venezuela to support them for a couple of games as well.
That will be fantastic, and I'm sure you will get, especially if the fans are back, which as of yesterday there's talk that they will be. I'm sure you'll get a warm reception from any fans that see you and recognise you as Samson's agent, because he really has defined their season in front of goal. And I do think he will step up. Not that he needs to, but I do think he'll step his game up again in this final stage, because with better opposition, because it's the top two teams from each of the three groups competing for the title in the championship round, if you like. I really think he'll shine, because it's against the toughest opposition in this stage of the season where I think Samson's performed the best. So Sem, thank you very much again for joining us today. It's been great to talk to you, and genuinely really insightful. So thank you for your time. And on behalf of Caracas and Venezuelan football fans, thank you for bringing Samson to the league as well.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. And hopefully this could be the first of many players that we can work in the Venezuela market. And, the Venezuela league can improve with players like this as well. And, I want to thank Venezuela and Caracas for giving us this opportunity. And hopefully we'll see the fans very soon. So I'm looking forward to coming there as soon as possible. And thank you, Jordan, for taking time as well.